So I think it's important that we go ahead and take a minute just to kind of set the tone for the group. And we're reminded of the fact that if a process doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. And we recognize that the assignments may be challenging for some. And certainly we want to encourage people that this is a place that's safe, that you can go out there and be vulnerable. And to that end, I'd say critiques are wonderful. Let's try and make sure that we don't do things in a spirit of criticism. People are at different levels. They're on different tracks, different places of creative capability and technical ability. Some are going to have more time to be able to dedicate to doing these assignments. Others are going to be doing their best just to grab their phone and do something. The key is that you're doing the assignments.
Absolutely.
Right? That's how you'll go through the process. It's not about the quality right now. It's much more about going through the process, going through the steps.
You know, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Van Gogh, who we've been studying, who became an artist not because that was his first job that he really wanted. He really wanted to be doing something else, but his brother suggested that since he kind of enjoyed painting, that he at least pick it up. But he struggled, just like so many of us, every one of us as artists struggle in the beginning, and we need help.
Well, I think what's refreshing to be able to see is that certainly some artists are born with more talent than others. That exists without a doubt.
Get you that far.
Well, the process is, even with great talent, you still have to work and develop yourself. And as we touched on, there are natural artists and there are learned artists. One is not superior to the other. And, you know, I am a learned artist. I really have to work and develop myself in order to be able to do a lot of the creative side of things. And of course, for you, it comes a little bit more simply when you're thinking about the creativity aspects of it.
But you know, one of the cool things that Van Gogh did was once he understood color, he really challenged himself to take himself to the furthest extent of the complication of daring color when he was trying to explore on his palette.
Sure. You know, one of the things that you had touched on even there is this idea of dual complementary color. And just real quickly to set that, we talk about not using them in equal proportions. To give you kind of an application of that, if you had a yellow field and you had some purple maybe in the background or a blue sky, something like that, that's your dominant complementary color. The secondary set of complementary colors, the reds and the greens, that's probably being done, maybe it's only 10% of the image. It's much less in relationship to the dominant complementary colors. It works well though when you merge those together because it adds complexity. And typically that's going to be a scene that has more depth.
And we laugh and say, if you put them all at the same strength, it'll kind of look like some of the wrapping paper that we all receive.
Exactly. You know, that leads us into the whole Canon of Design article, which I believe for those that read the in-depth article, it's almost like the elephant in the room. You're looking at it and going, okay, I see that there's all these different patterns, but which one did she use and which one am I supposed to use? And here's the simple answer. The reason why Annie Leibovitz's photo works so well is because it works on so many different levels regarding the principles of design. When we're doing our photography, it's not that we need to use more, although when it works on many levels, it's more powerful, it has more impact. But it's that you are using them as guidelines. And I'd like to say this about the term rules. Like when we hear the term rules of thirds, in this sense, the word rule is simply a definition. It is that there's a defined concept, so we call it a rule. It is not to say it is a rule we must follow. Right? Just like whether you're doing bullseye composition, golden ratio, all these different things, think of them just as guidelines, as templates.
Principle.
They're a principle. That's all they are. And we want to use these principles to guide us, but they aren't something that we must incorporate in every photo, right? We need to incorporate one. There needs to be composition, but which one is entirely up to you.
So true. And the other thing is too, because we don't have words and we don't have sound in our photography, We need to use the strength of other elements that we have in our design principles, and color is one of the ones that we can use quickly to evoke a feeling, whether it is through us as the author or what we're trying to get somebody to feel.
Sure, we're trying to suggest to them.
And perfume ads are the perfect example of that. And I love flipping through magazines and see the different ads with the different attitudes, because basically on the printed page we can't smell the aroma of that perfume. But really, once we start looking at it in the beautiful choices of color that are done, and with the attitudes that are set by that color, I think you can.
Well, it certainly does suggest a feeling of perhaps joyfulness, sassiness, playfulness, luxuriousness. I mean, all sorts of different ideas that they're trying to communicate. And that's the key when it comes to color, is whether you're using it broadly or as a wash, as the entire palette, or if you're using just little accents. The intentional thinking of the color becomes a powerful tool that we can employ to communicate with the audience, which is the ultimate goal of a photographer. How do I communicate my intent to my audience? Which brings us to the ideas of symbolism. And of course, okay, now that you can use color, there's going to be objects or things that we put in there that give clues for the audience to be able to know what it is that we're looking at, and to figure out our intent and to derive their own meaning from. And so with that, we have to figure out, okay, what is it that we're going to put into the canvas, so to speak, our frame? And I think that there's kind of two ways to think about photography. Number one is I'm just documenting. I'm just capturing what's in front of me. And when we're doing that, often we're figuring out what it is that we want to not show. The other way to think of it is I'm going to create something. And when we create something, then we're thinking about what it is that we're going to show. Both are valid approaches, and both we're going to do at different degrees at different times.
It could be we're doing both at the same time.
Well, that's what what I'm trying to say, is that, you know, even if you said I'm going to create something, absolutely there's a point that before you click the shutter, you look at it to make a determination, is there something that really I should remove because it's either unnecessary, or it's complicating the scene, or it's not adding variety, or it's taking away from the unity, right? But when we're thinking about it in these terms, in a sense we're thinking about it much like a painter would. When Van Gogh says it's just as important, not Van Gogh, what am I saying? When Rembrandt says it's just as important what you don't show as what you do show, we might think of that in terms of lighting, right? And do we have dark areas and do we have light areas? But could it be, and I think it is, it's also what is it that I'm going to put onto that canvas? And of course, a painter has the advantage of when they put something on the canvas, if they don't like it, they can just paint right over it. You know, as a photographer, we've got to evaluate it before we click the shutter.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, this has been fun for me. So I feel like we have laid a foundation this last 5 lessons, and we can't wait to build upon those foundations, both using the elements of art that we've just learned and that we will continue to build on, and the amazing principles that we have through the design and the composition that we're trying to create with our pieces. And so, but I wanted to probably challenge you to think about all these elements, not just to capture, but as Luke said, to create before you ever pick up your camera.
I'd say this, why are we placing such emphasis on this particular section? Why are we leading off with it? And the short answer is this: around World War II, technology had changed. Snapshots were becoming more accessible. And so there was a shift in photography where it broke away from its original roots in art, perhaps differently than filmmaking, painting.
Some of the cousins.
Yeah, some of the cousins that we have. And so it was after that time, much of the emphasis in the teaching has been on the technique and the craft, which has left a gap. Once we're able to have that foundation to tie us back into the art side of things again, then it's no longer an either or, it's an and. Right?
Absolutely.
And we need to think of it as an artist and a craftsman and approach it that way. And of course, in filmmaking and other vehicles, oftentimes they're doing, they're creating as more of a community. So even if a director didn't know some of the art principles, the lighting guy did, or the cinematographer did, somebody in there, maybe it was the set designers and so forth, had those roots. And so that's why there's a bit more of an elevated feeling.
I think so. Even wardrobe.
Yeah.
Everything is typically thought
Makeup,
through
yeah,
by
all that
the
stuff.
cousins on how we're trying to present to the thing. And the point is we believe that we in photography can do the very same thing, and that we can be artists and craftsmen, as Luke said.
Yep. Look forward to seeing you in our next 5 lessons.
Absolutely. Thank you.